I'm joined today by Austin Walter, who's the co-founder of Tribeworthy. Tribeworthy is a website that connects news consumers so that they can work together and review online articles with the idea of holding the authors and the news outlets publishing those articles accountable. This is very relevant right now. We heard of an idea that in some ways was sort of similar from Elon Musk. There were critics of that idea. There were people praising that idea. So tell us first, Austin, how does the platform work in practice?
So we have three different products and they all work a little differently, but the main one is the browser extension. And the way that works is that you install the browser extension, and then if you land on an article that's already been reviewed, then a little pop-up notification shows the rating of that article. And then if you click on it, it'll open up a sidebar which will show you specific information about the article and how other people reviewed it.
Okay. What are the standards for who can review and how that review takes place? In other words, can someone with the browser extension review articles as they go? Do they need to go to the sort of Tribeworthy website in order to do the reviewing? Talk to us about that.
So the idea behind the browser extension is that you can do it as you go. It makes it as easy as possible. So once the sidebar is open and you've seen all the details, then there's a big button that says review, and then you can leave your review right within the browser extension.
Okay. And what are the mechanisms in place that prevent sort of dogpiling of reviews to make something appear to be more reliable maybe than it is? In other words, one of the issues that we sometimes see is that the problem is the perception of an article's accuracy. And if that bias comes through in terms of who is reviewing, it doesn't necessarily seem as though the review itself would communicate anything new, if that makes sense. And how can we avoid bias on the behalf of reviewers?
So we go about that in a few ways. But before I tell you those, I just want to state that this is a serious problem that everybody's trying to address right now, and there's no perfect solution.
Sure.
We're proposing one way, but it's not the way.
Of course.
And the other thing is that we're focusing on trust, not truth. So we want to know how people feel that the article is trustworthy, but not necessarily whether it is, in fact, pure truth.
So is it fair
But
to say, I mean, before we jump into the algorithm, is it fair to say, just so that we all understand what you are hoping to discern and what the tool is not meant to discern, the idea would be identify whether a website is a serious news website or a propaganda, disinformation, or fake news website, but not to suss out, for example, the particular political bias, so to speak.
more or less, yes, that is the goal. So it's like we can't, fact checking, we can't rely that a person would know exactly whether or not one political figure actually did do a thing.
Sure.
But yeah, we can know whether or not there's a slant or there's a bias or if a person is writing with a specific voice and intention.
Fair enough. So let's now get back to sort of where we started, which is what ideas do you have as to how you can deal with what might be the inherent bias of the consumer votes that are choosing to vote on a particular website?
So there's a few different ways. The first is that we assign a rating to every user. So the idea behind this is that you come on our platform, everybody gets a rating. Everybody's equal in that sense. You have to prove that what you're providing is worth something. So if you leave a review and then other people, you can up, down vote, report, review other users. If you get a lot of people that review you negatively, then your rating goes down. In addition to that, we're also looking at sort of the context around a review. If you're constantly reviewing one thing, like one outlet, one news outlet, and you're constantly just giving it really negative reviews, and it's always the same type of review, well, maybe you have a bias against it. But if it's more varied, it comes down to just looking at the context around a review and saying, does this look a little unusual? And being unusual doesn't mean it gets removed or anything. It just makes us weight things a little differently.
Have you thought about the math behind sort of how many users you need reviewing, as well as how many reviews you need of a particular website before the data becomes sort of statistically significant? And what I mean by that is, it's sort of obvious that if one particular outlet has been reviewed 5 times, doesn't really matter whether those are trustworthy or untrustworthy reviews. That is not necessarily enough data with which we can really make a broader assessment. What does the sort of math of it look like?
So for the actual number rating, it's going to need to be higher. It's going to need to be, we're still like looking into exactly how much, but probably in the range of a few hundred uh, reviews to make the number viable. But if you look at the details of an article, the specific reasons chosen and the actual reviews that people have written, those become useful much, much more early on, within the range of like 5 to 10 reviews. Because then just if one person gives insight, then that's useful.
How can you prevent either corporate efforts to influence their trust score on your website, or Russian trolls, or any of the other sort of usual suspects that would have an interest in influencing what the trust score is for a particular media outlet?
So that's something that we are very concerned with focusing on, with fixing. We don't have a perfect solution yet, but one of the things we're looking at, for example, is blockchain technology is providing a possibility of authenticating people. So what we're looking into is different avenues for authenticating accounts. So the idea is that we make it very difficult to create fake accounts, to create unauthentic accounts. And then if a rating drops down, then that account isn't as useful anymore in terms of spreading propaganda or getting people to believe something, because the account's already seen as untrustworthy, and it's difficult to create a new fake one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that has to be balanced with user abandonment if it's too annoying to create a new account.
Yeah, it does.
When you heard Elon Musk's idea of a website where some of the goals seemed to be similar, although it seemed he was maybe more focused on the specific content of articles as opposed to sort of the general trustworthiness of a news website, in what ways is what you're doing similar to what Elon Musk mentioned, and in what ways is it not the same thing?
I would say it's similar in that we want to generate ratings for articles, the authors that wrote the articles, and the news outlets that provided the ability to publish the articles. I think there is still a general similarity in wanting to get out whether or not there are biases, or they're trying to like get across a point or maybe manipulate, persuade people into thinking certain ways. But the similarities end after that, because we don't want, like I said, we're not trying to pursue truth in its pure form, because, fact checking is one of those things where it's hard to do in an automated way. We're still like 5 to 10 years out from having that working super well. And if you're going to do actual fact checking, you have to have real people doing it. And that takes a lot of time. And in today's society, like, it moves very quickly. And then the other thing is that I don't know, he threw it out as an idea. I don't know exactly what his actual greater idea was, but we don't let people actually review the authors and outlets directly. You can only review the articles which create a cumulative rating for the authors and outlets. That way, that's another one of our techniques for making it so that you can't just try to attack an individual person or outlet.
Is Tribeworthy a for-profit? And if so, how can you ensure that funding sources don't potentially interfere with the objectivity of the ratings?
We are for profit. Uh, Being a nonprofit makes it very difficult to grow and expand, but you're right, it does come with downsides of making it harder to remain unconnected from people trying to influence the product.
Right.
One of the ways that we're trying to consider, and this is just something that we're considering, it's no by no means something that we're executing on, but something that we're thinking about is trying to go with a model eventually like Mozilla and Firefox's, where Firefox is a for-profit company and product, and then the Mozilla Foundation is a nonprofit that helps direct the path that the for-profit takes.
How will Tribeworthy make money?
The revenue models that we're focusing on are, so we compare ourselves to like Yelp for news. Well, the way Yelp makes money is they have these portal accounts for the restaurant owners so that they can see in greater depth the feedback that people are giving them on Yelp. And so like obviously anybody can just go on Yelp and see the reviews for a restaurant, but if you buy a business account with Yelp, then you can see more specific analytics and then information that is not available to the general public, that specifically is about you and your restaurant and how you can improve. And then the other thing it lets you do is it lets you respond back to people on your page. Well, we are planning on doing a very similar thing where we will let a journalist claim their account, and then they will be able to respond back to people that leave reviews on their articles and kind of create a dialogue. Because the whole idea here is to increase the dialogue, the conversation between the journalists, the news outlets, and the consumers, so that people get a better end product, a better experience. They get better news.
Very, very interesting idea. We've been speaking with Austin Walter, who's the co-founder of Tribeworthy. You can learn more about it online. Austin, we'll be following it. I really appreciate you talking to me about this.
Yeah, thank you.